Systems work, people fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser, where we share proven systems and processes for the 21st century advisor. Today, it's essential that advisors find a way to differentiate themselves from the competition. Learn how to elevate your game and accomplish incredible feats as Jeremy teaches you how to build a more successful and sustainable business, while realizing a better work-life balance is not only possible, but achievable.
In January, the year ahead seems so long. But suddenly, Labor Day, well, it's come and gone, and we're ready to wrap up the third quarter. Jeremy Hauser, how did this happen? And how are you and your team doing? And before we even get to that, how are you and the family doing? Olivia, how old is she now?
So she actually just turned a month back in the end of August. So she's approximately 6, depends on when this airs, 6-7 weeks old now. And she's starting to sleep a little bit better, which is great. Unfortunately, over the last couple of days, actually, my wife and I, we had some hiccups with Patrick recently starting school. So he's been in and out of the ER. He had croup disease. Also, he had para-influenza a little bit. And unfortunately, so thankfully now, so I'm happy to report we're monitoring him at home. Everything's good. He's in good spirits. He never really, besides a bad cough, he seemed to never lose his appetite. So it's a struggle to juggle 2 kids. I said on my last, I think, podcast episode, I talked about, I envy those that have 3, 4, 5 kids, but just having 2, man, it's a lot of moving parts.
Well, I do hope he's feeling better, because croup is a scary, scary thing.
Yeah, it really was. But for good news is to those of you that actually reached out and shot me messages. I know I was out for a day or 2. So appreciate that. And we're getting better. It's definitely a learning curve, adjusting to that. But obviously, I do work with some of the best advisors out there in the industry. You asked earlier. So we are approximately up 73% year over year. 2/3 of the way done with the year. I predict. And next month, I'm pretty excited because with things that are going on, our industry is doing really well. I think our team of advisors I work with, we're actually going to surpass last year's totals numbers in just the month of September. I'm pretty excited about the momentum we built and where we're going as a group and the opportunity here towards the end of this year.
Those are outstanding numbers, but there've got to be some kind of challenges. It can't be all just, peaches and cream here.
Peaches and cream, huh? No, there's something to that too. There's definitely challenges. It's not all roses. It's not always going to be just perfect. So in our space, I think the biggest challenge my advisors face as of right now, there's two folds of it. I think one, it has to do with paralysis by analysis. A lot of customers nowadays, for the most part, there might be a handful, the really wealthy individuals, they might be very used to what they're used to. It's tough to change, making adjustments. So when you meet a new advisor, it might take a little time to warm up and then decide to move forward with that individual. So the prospects, as we call them in our space, they tend to have sometimes paralysis of analysis, just really diving into the numbers and figuring out, is this really the best fit for me? And then the other one, which I think, in my opinion, is the number one challenge for our advisors, is just getting business process, because we're currently at today, it's a different time. We got a stock market that's going very volatile, up and down. I think as we're recording today, it's down close to almost 20%. And I mean, that's any day. It has swings of 2-3% a day of good or bad. So we have volatile markets. We got the Fed making announcements that they may be increasing interest rates. We don't know. We don't know the uncertainty of it. We also have...
Spare me. We know the rates are going up.
We have with that. Yeah, exactly. So, smart people get it. We don't need to be told what we think. And then we got other individuals that are redefining the obvious. So, or they're getting away with removing the truth. It just so happens, I don't know if you know what a recession is, but when 2 quarters back to back are negative, that's actually a recession, or that's a sign that we are in one. But when people remove the fact that they're changing the name of that's not a recession, this is what it is. There's no standard to all of a sudden now people can get away with saying, yeah, maybe that's not exactly what's going on today. And so for all those uncertainties and challenges that are going on in our world, what our advisors are providing is a lot of safety and certainties. And for that, there's a flock of business that is now coming to the providers that we utilize. And also, so coming out of the summer months, we had a lot of people taking vacations. So we could assume there was going to be a good uptick in business, but nothing like we've seen today. The industry itself, I think we're on record pace, not just my team, but the industry is on record pace of having one of the largest years for fixed index annuities that are being requested by these customers nowadays. So it's a great problem to have, and then again, you have to be a really good advisor to set the right expectations with the customer. If they can't go ahead and reposition their assets from A to B within the normal standard time.
Well, what are you seeing your advisors doing to get in front of new people?
So a couple things. I mean, really, just it's a blessing. So if they're doing anything whatsoever of marketing, they can be doing a lot of virtual webinars. I know I've had a couple of guests. Episode 22, one of the partners of ours, Al Casato, he talks about that in his process, his system to have people to go out, do virtual webinars, attracting very affluent, wealthy individuals. The prospects that are coming through there are very qualified. And what's nice for the advisor, especially when they do virtual webinars, is they can do these appointments from the seat of their own home, the comfort of their home. And same thing goes for the prospects. So they can work with people that are in different states. They don't have to rely on just their local guy or girl down the street. So people are looking to work with the best advisors out there in the country. And thankfully, we have some good proven systems and processes like that that's been helping some of our advisors. In fact, last month, I actually noticed that over the last year, with all the data that we've gathered, just the last month, I've had my advisors that have been doing virtual webinars for over a year now. There was 100% difference. So when it came to the registrants, for people registering for their webinars last year, the amount of registrants actually jumped up over 100% from last year. Wow. So what that tells me is that prospects and individuals are out there seeking knowledge. They're wanting to know about topics such as market volatility, taxes, you name it. I mean, it could be about anything really nowadays, but people are more open to having a conversation with someone new as opposed to even if they've had the same person for 5 to 10 years. But that's just one example. Any form of marketing that advisors are utilizing. The best thing is you can do anything you want and you can still get in front of new prospects. You just have to have a plan, and then you got to execute it, the right system, the right process, and don't feel like you're winging it. You have to follow a repeatable process that and seen results from others already doing it.
Now, before we started taping, you were talking to me about going on the offensive. What do you mean by that?
So going on the offensive is really more just being bold. Advisors nowadays, I feel like where we are in the most part, as I see the most successful advisors that I work with, they're not afraid to go out there and actually put their stamp on something before the media talks about it. So they're talking about things. I know previous podcast episodes, I think we talked about it, or maybe offline, we talked about stagflation, but these were conversations we were talking about in January or February. And all of a sudden, Lord and behold, what happens in July and June? Now the media talks about, oh, it's really happening. So as opposed to waiting 4 or 5 months, don't be afraid to go out there and speak your mind, use the data that you're able to really pinpoint what's going on in the marketplace. And customers are out there looking for people that aren't afraid to interpret what's going on and what that means to them. So really going on the offense is you got all this chaos here. A lot of advisors today, the ones that we work with, actually really utilize some of these safe money products to help protect assets. So use these stories. Go ahead, have conversations with prospects, really go on the offense more so of just sharing with them, not just what's going on in your day-to-day activities, but let the customers know, hey, when it's all said and done, this is what I believe is coming out. Don't wait for the news to tell you and just be a parrot like a lot of other advisors are. And we're seeing a huge uptick in business from those that aren't afraid to go against the grain and be outspoken.
And does this work with people? I mean, advisors want, well, they would hope, obviously, to have a client moving a lot of money, $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions. Does this going on the offense help with this?
So it does. And what it does is it starts a conversation. So that's really what it comes down to. It's piquing someone's interest to have an opportunity to say, you know what, even though I might have 2 advisors as a customer, I may have 2 advisors already. I may have millions of dollars to my name. I have multiple people, but I keep seeing XYZ. I keep seeing Joe Smith, who continues to send me a video email and doing some very out there predictions. I'm struggling with that. Predictions. That's what's going on out there in the marketplace. But for whatever reason, I've been following Joe for the last 6 months, 7 months, and he's been spot on. And here I am. I have millions of dollars with my particular advisor I've been with for 10, 15 years, and he won't even answer my phone call. So at least when you're doing certain things to attract and really just get someone to raise their hand and say, you know what, I'm open to a conversation. It's about when you have that opportunity to have the conversation, you got to have the right process. And more so where a lot of advisors are moving millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars, what I'm seeing is just don't be afraid to challenge that prospect. Ask them, going back to some previous podcasts, ask them what their standard is. Are they aware? You know, a lot of people nowadays just assume that just because the market went down, it's going to come right back. And when is it going to come back? Who knows? But have them have a standard. Also, make them write it down. I can't emphasize enough. The advisors that are doing really well this year is, even if it's in a virtual appointment, if it's in a real life appointment, once you have a conversation with a prospect, who knows what's going to be remembered from that conversation. But the real value is if you get a customer or a prospect asking them certain questions, to write down very important information about what their truth is and hold them accountable to that. Those are the ones that are getting people emotionally involved to actually make a decision, as opposed to having a great 30-minute to an hour conversation with a prospect. And then all of a sudden there's nothing written down. Those people, they just go about their lives and business as usual. But when it's sitting there on a sheet of paper and they're sitting there looking at their truth and realizing, you know what, maybe my standard's not being met, those are the ones that are having an impact to get them to actually move forward and protect some of their assets.
How do you use that when we're going into the end of a year that we don't know what's going to happen? This year has been such an enigma. How do you use something like that to inspire a potential client?
More so getting them to have a conversation. And with a lot of the uncertainty out there, it's building credibility, it's building trust. You got to have the right tools. You have to be an expert. Going on the offense, going back to, don't be afraid to be out there. I know I have several of my advisors who have, if they don't have a podcast episode, or if they don't have a podcast already themselves, if they don't have a radio show, some local presence out there online, you have educational videos. So advisors really have to have a good way to present themselves as the experts, as the actual experts, and not just them, but their team, who are here to actually provide the data, the information to get someone motivated to move forward. But here towards the end of the year, the real emphasis is, if you can get a customer or a prospect to answer certain questions a certain way and have them write down their truth, to just maybe get them to second guess, you know what, that guy Joe, although I don't really know him, he's making me think right now. Based on those line of questions and the answers I have here, I think I do have a problem. And here towards the end of the year, who knows? Eventually that person may move forward. And all I can say is based off of some of these results that in the processes my advisors are using. I've seen a huge uptick. Like I mentioned earlier, 73% year over year. The advisors are up this year from last year. And most importantly, too, therefore, a lot of our carrier partners are just getting an influx of business. And so customers, too, it's that FOMO effect. They don't want to miss out on something that's happening. So the fact of, hey, would you rather move forward with somebody and all of a sudden account A went to account B really quickly, or the fact that it is taking a little time and knowing that these people or these accounts might take a little longer to move forward, that means you're not the only one, not the only game in town that's wanting to do this particular solution. And I think a lot of customers nowadays are starting to have a lot of different feelings, FOMO, and also just wanting to protect their assets. So it's a great opportunity for advisors. They just got to be plugged into the right system that possibly InsureMark has some of the resources for them to provide.
Outstanding thoughts, Jeremy. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to make sure we mention?
I don't know.
You've done pretty well here, I'll tell you.
I do think that there is something to the road less traveled. So what I would say to advisors is possibly, especially if you're listening to this, you're not already working with a team. So during these uncharted waters, so especially back in 08, 09, for those advisors that were in the business back then, there was a lot of hiccups because we did see a huge influx of business going towards safety. And as y'all probably recall, back in 08, there was a huge market shift and people were flocking to safety. And you really want to have the right team to make sure that when those situations do happen, you have the right group to where your business is getting processed at a timely fashion. You have the right contacts at certain carrier partners to make sure that your business is getting processed at a timely manner. You're not just one of many. So really the road less traveled is you want to work with a really successful team who's been through the ups and downs in the marketplace, but also as an advisor, be bold. Don't wait for the media or don't wait for just because some particular group is reaching out to you to do this program that 400 different advisors are doing. Maybe you should do that. Maybe that has already been done and that ship has sailed. Go against the grain, possibly look at processes that not everybody's doing. And you'd be amazed at the results like our team is using or having with some of our systems just by doing something that isn't necessarily the normal.
All right. Well, Jeremy, how can advisors reach you? I'm sure they're listening and a lot of them have questions.
They can reach us on LinkedIn at Jeremy Hauser. Follow us on Truth Social as well. That's another link that we're actually doing our post on for podcast and sharing best practices. Or feel free to just go to the website at advisormentorship.com and you can reach out and request one of our intro kits.
All right. And before you know it, folks, it will be December. Make sure you don't miss any of Jeremy's shows between now and then. All you have to do is follow the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. And if you find these insights useful, please share the episodes with colleagues and friends. I'm Patrice Sikora, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening to the InsureMark Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and connect with Jeremy on LinkedIn to stay up to date. If you would like to request our introduction kit, feel free to check out www.advisormentorship.com and click on Learn More. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of InsureMark. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. Thank you for listening to the InsureMark, the Advisor Mentorship Podcast with InsureMark Vice President Jeremy Hauser.